Good morning. This is the Bay Area Down Syndrome and Autism Alliance Webinar 1, Mid-Year School Check-In. My name is Teresa Unnerstall. We're going to give a few minutes here to allow you to get a cup of coffee, spot of tea, crack your knuckles, and we'll get going on this. You may notice that on the tab at the top, there is a folder button. If you click on that, you can see the outline for the webinar. So we're just going to give it a few minutes here and get started. Good morning. Welcome to Webinar 1, Mid-Year School Check-In, and this is through the Bay Area Down Syndrome and Autism Alliance. We're going to give just a few more minutes here before we get started. If you would like to access the outline for this webinar, go to the top tab on the folder button and you can click to get those. And I'll give you just another minute or so, we'll get going. Welcome to the Bay Area Down Syndrome and Autism Alliance Webinar 1 Mid-Year School Check-In. My name is Teresa Unnerstall, and I'll be leading and presenting some material today about working with the school. And again, I mentioned already, but there is an outline for the webinar on the top where you see the folder tab. You can access that. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Teresa Unnerstall. I am a mother of two boys. My younger one is Nicholas. He is 24 years old and has a dual diagnosis of Down syndrome and autism. For the past several years, I've been writing a blog about navigating this life with Nick and that dual diagnosis. In addition, I am the specialist, the dual diagnosis specialist for the Bay Area, or the Bay Area, the Down syndrome connection of the Greater Bay Area. So the purpose of this webinar is to assist parents. Let me hold on, give me a second here. Click my slide. There you go. Now you can see it. The purpose of the webinar is to assist parents having a child with a dual diagnosis of Down syndrome and autism, and just really checking in on the progress at this mid-year point at school. We're going to give you practical tips for working with staff and really specific questions to ask about the learning environment, behavior, and the IEP itself. All right, you guys ready to get started? Let's do it. If you at any time have any questions, please feel free to ask those, and we'll certainly address those at the end. And I look forward to hearing more about what we can do for you. All right, let's dive in. So a child with a dual diagnosis of Down syndrome and autism may have more challenges with communication and behavior. So it's really important to have those supports and strategies that in the mix so they can really foster their learning. Example here with this, the visuals of how am I feeling? Children with autism often see things better in pictures and understand better using the picture form. So some of the material I'm going to cover, you may already know, and that's great. Take what you need from this. Bottom line, navigating, we're going to work on navigating that dual diagnosis, and it's not easy. I've had 24 years of it and certainly have been through it all. So my goal today is that you get some good strategies at this midway point in the school year. So the school and the IEP team should always hold on to that belief that every child's potential and their capabilities, and they have value in their community. First and foremost, keep in mind that purpose of an IEP, that Individualized Education Plan. Your child's IEP should be driven by three things. First, to promote further education. Secondly, to promote employment. And third, to promote their independent living. I'm going to cover 5 areas, tips for you to just as a check-in for the school mid-year in here. I know the spring conferences that are coming up, they certainly are here in Chicago. And these are just some tips that I think are going to really help you out. So first, communication with the school staff. How are you communicating with the staff? Are you using email, text, daily or weekly reports? Is there a communication notebook going back and forth? I like the idea of the communication notebook because my son is very limited in his speech, not quite nonverbal, but can't come home and tell me how his day was. Vice versa, he can't go and tell the teacher, I didn't sleep good last night. So that's what that communication notebook is really great for. You can say, hey, had a restless night, there was a storm, or maybe woke up in one of those moods and is throwing and dropping things and just seeking extra sensory needs. And that's just a good way to speak, get that voice for your child. And, ask yourself, do you feel like you're receiving enough information on your child's performance and their behavior? Are you getting enough about your child's day? If your child is nonverbal or very limited in speech, you as a parent really do become that voice and advocate for your child. This is a sample of a daily report you could use, and some of you may be using something similar to this with icons. If your child understands with pictures, this is a great way to go back and forth with the teacher, and it's easy for the teacher to fill out. You can customize these, however. I've worked with teachers over the years and kind of tweaked what seems to work best. What I also like about this report is that you can open that backpack and share with your child. Hey, how was your day? Did you like cooking? Were you happy? And if they cannot speak to you, they can at least smile, thumbs up, and you get a sense of sharing their day with them. This is another sample of a written daily report. If your child has some writing skills and reading skills, this report might fit you better. Again, each child is individual, and so just make that work for you and the team, the IEP team. All right, second tip, organize all that correspondence with the school. Keep a notebook or a binder, and that should include everything. The IEP itself, any progress reports, those quarterly reports you get, the behavior plan if you have one, and just any other correspondence you have. By having that notebook and bring it to every single meeting, training, you can open it up, refer to it at any time, and have that information at the palm of your hands. I have the same spiral notebook. I think I've had it since middle school, and I take it to every single meeting, every single training I go to. We have a retreat here in Chicago for dual diagnosis, and through NADS, our local agency. Bring it to that, and then I can always refer back, and if somebody asks a question, oh wait, I remember doing a training or something about that. But great way to just keep, help to keep your head together and keep organized. And in that same vein, log in the dates and times and whatever that nature of the communication is. That parent documentation is really, really essential, especially with those key requests and in any communication you have between the school district, the education team. Just make sure all that's in writing. Kind of dot your I's and cross your T's, if you will. Third tip, review the child's IEP, that Individualized Education Plan. That IEP outlines the academic and functional goals, those supports that are needed, and the accommodations and services provided for your child. And I also suggest comparing the current IEP goals to what's going on those quarterly reports you're getting, and just see how much progress your child is making in those goal areas. Are there any red flags? Are you seeing NP, meaning no progress? Jot a note. That'll be something you want to bring up at the conference. Keep in mind, if you do see some changes in behavior, goals that aren't being met, those are the things you're going to want to talk about at the conference. I'm going to give you an example. Regression of behavior. That often happens. It could happen for whatever reason. The example I'm going to give you is something that happened to my son when he moved out, had graduated high school and was going into the transition program, the post-secondary transition program. Bus pulls up, as it always does. Walk in with Nick, who's probably about 5 foot, 205 pounds maybe at the time. And so he's small. The bus was filled to the gills, and everybody was a young adult, at least twice his size. I looked around, nobody was budging to give him a seat. Finally, one gal did an eye roll and let him sit by her, and I sort of crossed my fingers and hoped everything went well that first day in that new program. What ended up happening is he became withdrawn, and he started having a regression of behavior by having urinary accidents. And this probably happened for about 3 weeks. This is a child or young adult that has been 100% toilet trained since early middle school. So to see this behavior was really upsetting for me as a mom. So we called a meeting and discussed that he was very intimidated by this bus. So we had them change and adjust the schedule and the load on the bus. Once we did that, the regression of behaviors stopped. He got back to himself. He wasn't as withdrawn. He was more Nick. Here's another example, something you might need to accommodate mid-year or just any time of the year, especially if you have those transitions. Another transition is elementary school to middle school. So in elementary school, the halls are quiet. The teacher has her finger over her lips. Everybody's walking in a straight line. You go to middle school and it's mayhem. The bell rings, it's loud, it's crowded. And again, a person having Down syndrome might often be a lot smaller in stature. So that can be another intimidating thing, those hall passes. So we made the accommodation to adjust his passing period to be 5 to 10 minutes before the bell rang. That lessened the sensory overload for my son, and also just kept him a little calmer. All right, fourth tip. Contact your teacher and discuss ways to keep your child on track for the rest of the school year. Remember, at any time you can request an IEP meeting, especially if there are setbacks in behavior or you're seeing that no progress on the goals. Kind of take a moment and ask yourself, are there any reoccurring behaviors where you're seeing the child avoid or escape a task that might be too hard? That could be a reason why there's no progress on that goal. Sometimes you have to adjust those goals or just break down the task into smaller pieces so they're not as overwhelmed. Sometimes it could be necessary that you have to call a meeting for some new behavior problems that need to be addressed. And you, again, call those at any time. Fifth tip here, look at the big picture of your child's growth and well-being. Are those current goals ultimately promoting your child's further education, employment, and their independent living? Everything you think should go toward that, and the goals should reflect that. Are those goals meaningful? Are they realistic? And then second, how's the overall disposition of your child? Do they seem happy? Are they frustrated? Do they maybe feel or have gotten to be withdrawn, like I was mentioning earlier with the regression of behaviors on the bus? And then does your child look forward to going to school each day? Do they wake up happy and excited? Are they going thumbs up? Or do they seem overwhelmed and shutting down? And just watch for those red flags. And ultimately, that's what we want for our kids, is that they are growing and happy in their well-being. So that's the first part I wanted to cover, and that's just some tips. And we're going to move on. Give me a second here. Here's some specific questions to ask about your child's learning environment. So first, follow up just to ensure, and this can be addressed at the conference at the IEP, or just pull and just ask for a separate meeting. You can do it via email as well, but some things to ask. First, follow up on any of those parent concerns or the school concerns that are actually listed in the IEP. Every IEP, you should be coming with your parent concerns. And are those being implemented regarding the academic skills, their social skills, behavior, communication, and that independent living piece? I'm going to give you a couple of examples of some requests that might be made. Talked about the loud halls. So one solution might be to, or even just a loud classroom for that matter, implementing some noise canceling headphones. Your parent concern might be, and the team could agree, okay, when this room is loud, let's put in two things in place. I need a break card so they can tell the teacher this is too much, and then pair that right with the noise canceling headphones. This will really help keep things from escalating, keep those, when you start seeing things like SIBs, so self-injury behaviors, or pinching themselves or hitting their head, and then really cut that off at the pass and give them some control over their environment. Some other requests you might want to make, depending on your child, again, every child is individual, supports like your picture exchange system, whether you use a communication book for that with pictures, or an augmentative alternative communication device, an AAC device. That's another one. Some other supports that might help your child learn better as well. So some of these might be sensory objects, fidgets, chewies. Again, I mentioned those noise canceling headphones, and then just building in motor and sensory breaks throughout their schedule. So another good question to ask is, what enrichment activities are being offered to support inclusiveness? If your child's in a self-contained classroom, there are ways to provide those opportunities. And one is just, here's an example, creating a group, maybe like a lunch bunch group, where they meet and play board games, or like matching memory games. That's always a good one that a lot of people can play. Is there any kind of club in the school? And this could be elementary school as well. Gardening clubs, something where they could be a part of, with some neurotypical peers. As they get a little older in middle school, there's opportunities like Special Olympics, and some of these have peer buddies. I know bocce certainly does, where you're paired with a neurotypical student and getting that opportunity to have some inclusion. In high school, there's also peer buddy program, the peer partner program is a great program. They do dances, they do go to the movies on the weekends, have monthly meetings and parties, and it's a lot of fun. Bowling, that's another one. And also in adaptive physical education, often they will pair and get that chance to have that inclusion experience. And then another good question, is there a particular goal where they're just not making that progress, that MP? If so, it just might be necessary to make those adjustments, break down that task into smaller pieces, or even change the goal so that it meets that individual needs of your child. A lot of times we do that meeting, and then whenever you see the MP, it's like red flag, red flag. We gotta do something here to give them a little more success in their school experience. I'm going to back this up. Sorry. Got ahead of myself. All right. So I'm going to give you some examples and just some suggestions. Again, you may already, your teachers and team might already be doing these, but some ways we can support more independence for your child. Visual schedule, whether it's on paper or an app. There's an app called the Visual Scheduler app, which is really a neat way to allow the student to navigate their day on their own and foster that independence. How cool is that? Visual timers are great, and you can have those in the classroom, but also they now have an app. They have an app for everything, don't they? So I like to use that app to get Nick to brush his teeth, you know, and then it makes a little sound at the end, which he thinks is way cool. Other things, ways you can support independence, using task strips. If you have them doing a particular teach bin, you can break that down into individual tasks so they can follow it. It's almost like reading a script for them when you use those task strips. And also, some students are more motivated by, video modeling. I love that idea of teaching new skills with video modeling. Another way that you can promote independence and allow them to have a voice, your child to have that voice, is menu choices. If they go out to community outings to eat, work with the team to get a picture of the menu. Like Buffalo Wild Wings, that I've seen that's come home in the backpack where it's like, and then I go, Nick, what do you want to eat? I'll think he wants chicken nuggets and fries, but he'll pick something different. It's like, oh, you have other tastes. Let's just don't assume that you always want chicken nuggets and fries. And the other cool thing about those, you can also do that off your phone too. I do it all the time if we're going to a restaurant, just to let him show me what he actually wants. No Mountain Dew though. We'll keep it with Sprite for him. All right. Here's another example of using a smart board in the classroom. Smart board, that was the one that I showed you at the beginning where you saw Nick pointing to the happy pictures or different emotions. Good way to say, how are you feeling today? Another thing, when he was in the post-secondary transition program, they had Dance Fridays, and the teacher would ask me, what kind of music does he like? Let's just don't assume he likes the same music as, his peers. And so I would send in icons for different types of musical artists, and he would see those pop up on the board, on the smart board, and he would go point to it, like the Beach Boys, or I'm trying to think whatever else. But that's an example. Beach Boys. He's got good taste. What can I say? But again, these are doing these visuals and allowing them to point to and say, this is what I want. It gives power to your child to make their own choices. What does that lead to? A feeling of control, a feeling of independence, and less anxiety. All right, let's move on. I'm going to check the time real quick here. All right, we're good. Here's some questions to specifically ask about behavior. First, what positive reinforcements are in place to get that response we want from our child? What motivates your child? For some, it's praise, it's cheering. Yay, good job, high five. Music, a lot, it could be music or something like computer time. I know the program Starfall was always a big hit for the students in the classroom as Nick was growing up. Or just maybe a treat. My son loves Sprite. Sprite, that's how he says it. And so we made a template. The teacher and I came up with this idea to make a template and he would work for Sprite. So the S was 10 minutes. He'd do a teach bin, sorting, or some type of activity where he's academic activity in these bins, folding, all kinds of stuff. And so he worked 10 minutes and he put the S on there, Velcro it. And then He'd work another 10 minutes and pee all the way to Sprite, and then he got that reward, and they made a big deal out of that. So his time on task was actually up to 40 minutes. Again, you got to find that favorite thing, that highly preferred object, and that really helps with the positive reinforcement. Next, are there any changes in the behavior that need to be addressed? Like I mentioned earlier, the bus overcrowding, that regression of behavior. Is the classroom too loud? Are they doing those SIBs, self-injury behaviors, pinching themselves, getting frustrated, throwing things? Maybe that's when they need that break card, or take a sensory break, take a walk, go to a designated sensory area. That allows them to make that call, like, this is too much, I need a break. So if there are behavior problems arising, ask to see some data, or ask them to actually do some behavior data. And that's one way that you can determine that function of the behavior. What's driving this sudden behavior, or these behaviors that are happening at school and at home as well. And is there a need, because of that, to do that functional behavior analysis? That's called the FBA, to explore that further, get to the root of the problem. So if there's a behavior plan in place, are there any new behaviors that need to be addressed and tweaked on the current plan? Kind of look at the behavior plan as kind of like painting the Golden Gate Bridge. Just when you think you're done, you get to the end, you turn around, you have to start all over at the other side. And a lot of times with a behavior plan, you extinguish one behavior, or you redirect a behavior, bad behavior, or inappropriate behavior. They're throwing things, they're swiping things, your child's yelling and causing property destruction in the classroom and at home. Get rid of that, something else pops up. So that's always evolving. Again, like that Golden Gate Bridge, never quite done, seems to be. So here's an example of some behavior data that was done on Nick, my son. This was, you'll see first property destruction, and then SIB, that's your self-injury behaviors, physical aggression, and for my son, he's obsessed with fire alarms. I think we're at 46 right now since 3rd grade, and that's actually in the IEP. Carefully monitor Nick around all fire alarms. And you'll see a real spike here in December. You see how it spikes up there. So you look at that and go, what was going on at that time that might have piqued these behaviors? And when we look back, it happened to be two things. My husband and I went on a trip, a company trip, and we hadn't done that together in 10 years. Usually one of us is watching him. Have very reliable respite workers, and that was all fine. But just the fact that we weren't there for a week made somewhat of a difference of what mom and dad aren't home, you know. And then the second thing is some of the meds that he was on for that impulsiveness. The pharmacy company actually, it was like back ordered. We couldn't get it. And so a combination of those two things really spiked that behavior. So that's a good reason to look at data and just try to solve the puzzle, and then make the adjustments in the behavior plan that's always evolving. Talk a little bit about the dual diagnosis, Down syndrome and autism, and communication and speech. That behavior and the communication go hand in hand. It's so important to look at how your child communicates. Every behavior, even those not so desirable ones, they're trying to communicate something. What is it? That's when we gotta do that digging. Look at the data. Is it trying to avoid something? Is that maybe the goal's too hard, the classroom's too loud? Is it attention seeking? Is it a need for a sensory regulation? You know, are they just frustrated? Maybe they're just frustrated or tired or not feeling well. And looking, it's always good to ask the team, what are the communication the communication and speech methods that they're implementing at school. Is it picture exchange system? Is it an AAC device? Are they doing sign language? Maybe a little bit of all of that, which I think is great. And I'm just going to say one thing about AAC devices. A lot of times a team will put it in, okay, we got this, but that device is only going to be as good as those on the team and at home and the caregivers or respite caregivers that are going to utilize that and give them that voice, that power. Hey, yay, you used your talker. Good job. And encourage them to make that a part of their voice. And if is there a need to reevaluate the current method? And over the years, certainly we've done that. When my son was younger, we actually lived in Livermore in California there. We did a evaluation to try an AAC device. And what happened was he just basically stemmed off it. So he hit one button like, cookie, 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 make it sound like a rap thing. It's like, okay, so he's not using it for its purpose. So at that time, we went low tech with the picture exchange system. As he got older, we did several reevaluations. And again, that's the time when you go, maybe maturity has kicked in and this could work. And you can realize the power of this talker, this device. Okay. We are almost done. I'm going to check the time again. Oh, good. We're good. We're good. So, IEP season's coming. How do we work together at that IEP meeting, at that Individualized Education Plan meeting? First and foremost, begin each meeting with the end in mind. What steps are needed to get your child to really reach their goals? And again, those goal areas are academic skills, social skills, behavior, communication, and that independent living piece. What is that shared vision? So what at the end in mind is the shared vision of what your child is going to be at age 22 when that bus stops coming to the door. What is your North Star? Let's call it a North Star. What dream do you have for your child? What does the team feel and dream for your child? And you can look at that North Star and kind of work back from there. Maybe it's your child is really good at sorting. Maybe they are good with cooking or mixing. So look at what your dream is. Maybe it's, a long time ago, I wanted it to be a bagger, like at Safeway. And but maybe it's something like working as a barista. I have or Nick has a friend who has her own micro enterprise, her own jewelry business. She's really good at beading and has this talent. And this business is called Special Sparkle. Great jewelry, great ideas for gifts, by the way. Another micro enterprise idea would be shredding. That's something that could be practiced at school, at home, and could become a micro enterprise business for your child. Other areas, and there's so many ideas that you can come up with. Home, maintenance. Nick had jobs in high school. He loved to vacuum, still loves to vacuum. So he had a job with one of the retirement communities where he would go and vacuum up until he pulled a fire alarm. So that wasn't a good day there. But fortunately, they didn't evacuate them all. A sheltered workshop might be another option as well. So just when you think about the end in mind, that's the North Star. That's where you want to see your child when they are 22 years old. So my son, Nick, currently is in an adult day program. And one of his strengths has always been when he was younger to sort. He was so good at, and it still is like at home here. He unloads the dishwasher, knows exactly where everything goes. So that is a strength of his. And when you look at that North Star, look at the current strengths of your child. How can we build upon that? And so what that has morphed and become into now is a job at a local food pantry at church where he stocks the shelves, knows where everything goes, and also stuffs the bulletins of the church. Just some examples of a North Star for somebody that might have a dual diagnosis of Down syndrome and autism. Every child is individual. Keep that in mind with the team. Let's get that. Let's reach for that star. And secondly here, the team collectively should brainstorm together to create that vision, as we mentioned. We have actually done what we call here path meetings every 3 years or so. Get the team together, get grandparents together, siblings, therapists, everybody on the IEP team, and put butcher paper on the wall and go, what do we see as that North Star? Okay, there it is. Now let's back up and see what steps do we need to get to that vision we have. I'm checking my notes. I don't want to skip anything important here. Okay, so let's talk about solving the problems. We got a problem. Yes, we could focus on the problem, but let's be, as a team, solution-oriented, not problem-oriented. What does that mean? Here, I'll give you a scenario. Let's say your child or a child is very upset. They worked for their Sprite or whatever it was, worked for the computer time, whatever that reward is that they hold and covet, or it's music, and it's time to get back to work. What are we going to do? What's going on here? All of a sudden, your child or this child is pinching themselves. They're doing those SIBs. They are kicking. They're throwing their chair. They are swiping things. And digging in there, maybe doing just digging in their heels like, I'm not moving. Yes, that's a problem. But what steps, what solutions can we put in place to make that a better situation? So we could do a couple things here. Let's brainstorm, right? That's what we're here as a team to do. You're a part of the team just as much as anyone else on there, if not the most important part of the team. Maybe we start with this. Let's allow your child or this child to have more control over their environment. So let's get that visual timer out. Look, and give those countdown reminders. 5 minutes left, 4 minutes left, and they can see when the time is up. Reward time is up. You can also use a task strip or a schedule where you say, okay, computer time, all done, icon, stop icon, and then moving on to the next. So again, using a visual schedule, that visual timer so they can see. And then when it's all done, you can use what I think really, really works good is a stop icon. And sometimes you can just hand it to them like, okay, all done. Or what I think is really cool is to take like a plastic bin with that stop icon on it and just, this is what I do this I still do this in the morning with Nick. You know, he's got his iPad, we're waiting for the ride, hand him the bin, and he puts that iPod in the bin himself. That gives him that control. That lessens the anxiety. He sees the stop, he knows it's time. It's time to move on to the next. This transition can be really hard on our kids. And again, that's another combination. You might want to add in the IEP. You can't rush my child. He's going to get upset. He's going to start pinching himself. He's going to start yelling. So allow for that processing time and give them that control back. And again, you know your child the best. Get in there and brainstorm along with the rest of the team. So just a quick summary as we wrap it up here. We're doing good? Yes. Of this midway check-in for school, first thing, review that IEP, those progress reports, any notes you've gotten. Write down any concerns. What are the red flags? What goals aren't being met? Communication, open and often, especially if your child is nonverbal or very limited. Okay, just address those problems head on as you see them. And keep that notebook, that binder, that central location with the IEP, the reports, the behavior plan, any correspondence, all logged, all dated. That will keep you organized. And actually, as a parent, when you go into those meetings, you will have less anxiety by feeling organized and up on what the IEP is, what's going on. And then, again, contact your child's teacher anytime to meet and discuss those ways to keep your child on track for the rest of that year. And again, when I say on track, I just want to reiterate the regression of behaviors, changes of behavior. Those are those red flags that, again, you want to address head on. But just want to finish up here by saying we are often the voice for our child. And so believe in yourself as a parent. You're here listening to this. You are on the ball, and you are your child's best therapist and advocate. So my final thoughts here are this. You and the team together explore ways to maximize your child's strengths. What are those strengths? Every IEP should be starting with those strengths. Find their full potential, that North Star, and then just give them the controllers by using those visuals, those supports, those accommodations, and that communication piece so that they can soar to that North Star. So I would like to thank Katie. She has helped me immensely to get this webinar set up, and also like to thank Nancy LaBelle for allowing me to present this material and through the Down syndrome connection of the Greater Bay Area. So if you have any questions, I've just put my contact information up. Again, I'm the dual diagnosis specialist for the Down syndrome connection of the Greater Bay Area. My email's there, my website, if you want to catch the blog. It navigates a lot of territory of navigating a dual diagnosis, specifically Down syndrome and autism. Excuse me. And then if you want to follow Nick and how many fire alarms he's pulled, the social media is there as well. So I'm going to click in to see if we got any questions. Give me a second here. Okay, now I have some prior that were sent to me, so I'm going to cover those. If anybody else has any questions or comments, jump in and throw those out. We'd love to help you out. If you are going to listen to this webinar, recorded webinar later, there's my contact information. Let me help you. I have been through it all. I've been through the meltdowns. I've been through the code brown. I've been through anything you throw at me. I've probably been through. And came out surviving, might I add. All right, so here a couple of questions I got earlier. Here's the first one. What if you're seeing some increased behaviors? For instance, dumping, maybe running faucets, throwing things around the house, and they're happening at home, but they're not doing that at school. What is that about? Okay. Could be a couple of things. Could be sensory overload. I mean, I really think our, kids when they're at school, they really have to hold it together all day at school. So sometimes they come over, it's like, I've had it, I need to let go. And I think as human beings, we all kind of do that. But for someone like you and me, I can go work out, or I can, take a bubble bath or whatever. Yeah, never do that, but whatever relaxes you, do some yoga. Our kids might not have that capability to regulate themselves. So a couple of things you can do. I would first say check with your occupational therapist, both privately, if you have a private one, and the school OT, and get some ideas. So this could be maybe deep pressure. Maybe get home, let's have a snuggle time on the couch, get a heavy blanket. Sometimes heavy work activities help to really get that sensory regulation back. I mentioned Nick likes vacuuming, but sometimes just carrying the laundry up and down the stairs. Other children may respond better to some motor movement, some swings or trampoline, just to help them regulate. Another suggestion might be is just to maybe get like what I call a drop box. And this could be filled with things like fidget, light up balls. I know Easter's coming, so you can go to Walgreens and just get all those balls you throw and they light up and it's like, woo! And that's more of an appropriate way to drop and just have fun and then pick up at the end there. All right, I'm going to check the questions again here. Okay, I'm not seeing anything here on the questions, but Nancy, if you want to text me, something came up and I'm not sure where to find it. So if you want to text me real quick, appreciate that. All right, I got another question that came in. My child has a hard time attending pep rallies, band concerts, other school functions, these happening at school. He enjoys music, so I want him to go to these things. What can the team put in place to help support my child? And again, I'm sure they probably want these things so they can. Sorry, something's popping up here. Oh, maybe it's here. No, not get help. There's a little place where I see things coming up, but I'm not seeing the messages. So apologize, guys. I'm solo captaining this webinar today. All right. So guys, text me, Katie, if you can text me what you're trying to ask. I don't see where I'm supposed to click on here to find what you're asking me. All right. So let me get to that. Back to this question. Pep rallies, they're loud. They're a large open space. This is where we see, okay, this is a problem, but let's get solution oriented, right? So let's talk, how can we do this? Perhaps maybe one solution would be to have the student enter the gym or the auditorium ahead of time, so they're not coming in there with everybody and getting that overload of people. Again, people that are often taller than them as well. And just secure a spot, maybe low and off to the side with their aide or teacher in class. And then just maybe start, and this can also be if you're trying to take your child to the movies, you could do the same idea. Okay, we're going to go at a time when it's not so busy, maybe like Saturday morning or Sunday morning, and that first feature, and just try and just do little increments. So you kind of build their tolerance up a little bit. So same thing here, smaller increments at these events. If they'll tolerate headphones, maybe some noise canceling headphones, and that I need a break card so they can say, hey, this is a little much. Okay, so yeah, I got your message, Nancy. You know what, Katie, if you're there, can you text me? if you want to ask a question, I think you go to, okay, to the tab. I thought I mentioned this earlier, but there, you see the tab at the top. You guys all see the tab at the top that's got the folder. Go to the right, and that is where the questions. Oh, I see Katie said it popped in there. All right, Q&A. So we'll give a few minutes for you guys to throw out questions. Yes, so you definitely want to click at the top. You guys all see there should be a screen, the folder tab, and then the next one to the right is the question. I hope that's what you guys are seeing. I don't have it popped up like you. I just have it on my screen as a presenter. So. All right. Another question that might pop up for some of you, and has probably popped up. I know it did for me over the years. When the team gets together and looks at those hours for the services, okay, we're going to have to cut this back. Okay, what do we do about that? We need to work together and collaborate as a team and make that decision together. So, first thing I would say is why. My son has very little speech. Explain to me why cutting back on his or her speech therapy is going to do them any good. And speech therapy is not just about speaking. It's about that receptive language. It's about the communication more than that verbal. And some, a lot of students have such good receptive language. They understand. They just can't tell you. And so we got to figure out ways to allow them to have that voice again. Okay. So if you're trying to ask a question and you're on an iPhone, click on the people icon top left and type a question and then hit return. I hope that makes sense for you guys. Because I'm not, I guess I could have done it on my iPhone, but kind of hard to multitask here, right? Awesome. All right. Any other questions? I'm going to peek here. Oops, sorry, wrong one. All right, so we've got about 5 minutes or so. I'm going to leave the forum open up for questions. If you have any questions, like I said, if you're going to be watching this later or recorded, you have that contact information on the last screen there. Again, my name is Teresa Unnerstall, the dual diagnosis specialist for the Down syndrome and connection of the Greater Bay Area. It was kind of funny when I started to record my cat, Kibby. She jumps on my lap. I'm like, oh, really? I don't need her as a moderator. So anyway, I hit the mute button before I really got going, ran her upstairs and locked her in the bedroom. Like, we don't need the cat meowing in the background, right? So the Down syndrome connection, we're planning on doing more webinars, by the way. And if there's a specific topic that you would like more information about, send me an email, drop me a note. You can also go on our Facebook page. If you're in the Greater Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, the page is, hold on, I'm going to forget. Let me run over to Facebook here, but I want to get this wrong. We do have a page. It's Bay Area Down Syndrome and Autism Alliance. Okay, that's a closed group for the members of the Bay Area, and also maybe doing some Facebook Lives where you can just go, hey, let's talk this. Let's talk behavior. I'm all about talking behavior, toileting, get independent living skills. How can we create that North Star for our child? So those are just some of the other ideas we have for webinars. We'd love to hear from you, and we're here to help you. 24 years of experience here in the trenches, and again, my blog has so many categories that I cover, and you can get a lot of good information there. Just IEP tips, back to school tips, you name it, it's in there. Sensory, all kinds of good stuff. You can also contact the Down Syndrome Connection Greater Bay Area at our website, which is dsconnection.org. We'd love to hear from you. We want to provide more informative webinars for you, and we so appreciate you being here today. On that website, the downsyndromeconnection.org, dsconnection.org, there are a ton of resources. And we actually recently put together, if you're in the Bay Area, the Greater Bay Area, San Francisco, a huge and comprehensive resource list: doctors, camps, therapists, recreational programs, all sorts of helpful, these are actually resources that are our participants are in the Bay Area are using for, and so, we're not just going on Yelp or anything. These are actual people are using them and recommending them. So, all right, I'm going to check the questions one more time. Nancy, is there anything else you want me to add while you're while I'm on the air here? I know they are also doing if you're in the Bay Area, they're doing a Funky Sock campaign for World Down Syndrome Day. So check the dsconnection.org website for more on that. All right, it's just about the hour's just about up here. Again, please let us know what you want and what would help you and your family and your child that has a dual diagnosis of Down syndrome and autism. We're here to help you guys. So happy you joined us, and have a wonderful day. Keep aiming for that North Star. Thank you very much.